And this week, we will be examining what America is and has become in the aftermath of September 11th with a 5-part documentary series, a collaboration between ABC News Live and ABC's investigative unit. Tonight, we'll feature more of John Feal's story, who you just heard from, and take a listen to a little bit of what we're going to hear tonight.
I stopped in the middle of the Throgs Neck Bridge to look at the shroom coming from Lower Manhattan, and I was like, oh my God. I never went home.
John Feal was in the demolition business on September 11th. He was on a job site 45 minutes away from Lower Manhattan and could see the dust cloud rising well into that evening. Instead of going home, he and his boss went to the Trade Center to help with the cleanup efforts. The World Trade Center was now being called Ground Zero, and the almost 2 million tons of smoking rubble would be known as the Pile.
I stayed there for about 37, 38 hours straight. I was sleeping on my feet. I was putting baby powder down my boots and my pants. I didn't eat. I didn't wear a mask once. I was there for 5.5 days. I have about 60-something hours on that pile. I had a runny nose, a sore throat, cough. I saw people coughing up blood, people with bloody noses.
All right. Again, that was John Feal, who we just spoke to. We're going to have a lot more tonight on his story and the national security implications that followed the attacks. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas, who's also featured in tonight's episode, joins us live now for a little bit more on that security angle. Pierre, you say that in this documentary that after 9/11, we completely overhauled what Americans were allowed to do. So how did the government and agencies like the FBI change their approach in response to these attacks?
Well, the primary thing, and thank you for having me, that the FBI did is recognize that responding after the fact just wasn't good enough anymore. And whether it was because there was not enough respect for the adversary, whether there was not enough respect for how creative evil could be, i.e. Al-Qaeda in this instance, the notion that they would use planes as missiles. The FBI knew in the immediate horror thereafter that they had to change how they approached fighting terror, which meant they had to have a much better sense of who was entering the country. They had to have much better technological surveillance abilities through the NSA and other agencies. And they were going to have to work their sources and understand how people were communicating in order to get a sense of who might be planning the next wave of attacks. We also saw the way that we approach airports completely change. You used to be able to just drive up to an airport, get out of your car, basically get a ticket and get on board. That dramatically changed after 9/11, where, you take off your belt, you can't bring certain amounts of liquid on board the planes. All those things unfolded after 9/11, and dare I say, the country lost a lot of its innocence in terms of the notion of how protected we thought we were.
And now, how did it change policing in this country? Because that was another angle that seems to have evolved since then.
Well, I think one of the main things that happened is that the relationship between the federal government and local police, I think, has been greatly enhanced. You have these terrorism task force and fusion centers where the federal government is constantly communicating with local police. Also, you saw a lot of local police get more military-style equipment, expand their SWAT capabilities because they were worried about, well, what if we have some kind of armed standoff with, terrorists? Now, there are people in the civil rights community who believe that a lot of that equipment has been kept by law enforcement and then was turned around and used, in their words, against people protesting civil rights. For example, like in Ferguson, after we had that death of a black man at the hands of a police officer. So there have been a lot of changes, some of them good, some of them have been controversial.
And Pierre, what about those concerns about a second wave of attacks? Did anything close to what was expected or feared there ever materialize?
Well, thankfully, we did not have anything of that scale that happened. But I can tell you that law enforcement was deeply concerned that the bad guys had something else in the offing, that there would be additional planes being used as missiles. That's why you saw, the airspace basically shut down for days after the 9/11 attack. And I must tell you, it wasn't for lack of trying. If we look back, there was Terry Moran, I'm sure will remember the shoe bomber, the guy who allegedly was trying to sneak on board an aircraft with, basically a bomb built into his shoes. Thankfully, that didn't work. Years later, Al-Qaeda and its operatives tried to develop an underwear bomb. Our law enforcement and intelligence communities have gotten a lot better at protecting against that scale of attack. But there's great concern remaining about, lone wolves who could be inspired through social media. And right now, my sources are saying that the social media and these different ways that people are communicating online in the dark web, there's a lot of talk about encouraging people to do something around 9/11.
Always trying to stay one step ahead. Pierre Thomas, thanks for that. And you can catch episode 2 of the 5-part docuseries tonight at 8:30 Eastern on ABC News Live. New episodes of 9/11 20 years later, The Longest Shadow, premiere all week on Hulu.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.